The Tournament of Power, a competition conceived of Grand Zeno himself. All 12 universes competing with 10 fighters from each participating entity being hand-selected by the God of Destruction themselves, as when the team is rendered defeated, all of its members eliminated, not just the mortals participating, but the gods and the very universe itself that team comes from will be entirely erased. Although I have to admit, I did lie in the beginning there. Not all 12 universes are participating, only the 8 with the lowest mortal levels, therefore meaning universes 1, 5, 8, and 12 were exempt from participating, as their mortal level was at a score of 7 or higher. But don't mistake mortal level directly to mean strength, as it doesn't, far from it in fact. Universe 7 is one of the strongest in the multiverse, recognized by everybody, although it only has a mortal level of 3.2. Despite how strong the warriors in that universe are, their god of destruction, and to a point even the Kais, were absolutely horrible at their job, so the mortal level for that universe was drastically lower than universes that were still technically weaker. When Goku went to talk with Zeno about a tournament between the universes, he could have never imagined this would be the outcome. Threat of erasure on a multiversal scale. But his surprise should not be mistaken for fear, as Goku is not afraid. He is confident in his universes as well as his friends. He believes they'll be able to overcome any challenge, although there's no time for sentiment, as they need to go find all of their fighters and now if they want even a little time to train. But that shouldn't be a problem. The group is much more tightly knit than in the original, and the fighters that will be participating are way more clear-cut here. Goku and Vegeta are obvious picks. They've been trained under the gods and are by far the strongest in their universe, and are great contenders for strongest in the multiverse, so they're easily number 1 and number 2. Number 3 is undeniably Gohan, as he's incredibly powerful because he's kept up his training and has access to Super Saiyan 4, a near godly transformation that allows him to keep up even with his father and Vegeta. His hybrid potential also means that even without God Ki base to base, he's comparable to those two as well. And after nearly a decade training with one another, numbers 4, 5, and 6 would be Piccolo, 17, and 18, as the three of them have continued their training, and have gotten much stronger in the time to come. If you thought 17 was strong from just fighting poachers and maybe the occasional Cell Jr. every now and again, then he is an entirely different league here. And with 18 and Piccolo staying at the same level, if not sometimes jumping ahead, they are all three definitely going on the team here. Majin Buu wouldn't even be considered here because he was destroyed years ago. However, the entire group is still looking for somebody with magical capabilities, somebody that could heal them up when in a pinch, and Piccolo has just the person. Haibara from Yardrat. Piccolo had spent years training on Yardrat, and he's not like Goku. He'll remember people like Haibara and remember how capable they were with magical abilities, even if they weren't physically strong. And it might seem weird to put somebody who really isn't a fighter into a fighting tournament, but there are many different reasons to do this. First off, he's basically a bag of Senzu Bean. He can heal them whenever they're low on stamina or have any sort of injuries, meaning they can basically pop a Senzu without getting disqualified. But that's only scratching the surface. He can make clones of himself. He can grow to be 1,000 feet tall. He can teleport. In a tournament where the only real way to get disqualified is ring outs, he is practically untouchable because he can just teleport away whenever he's about to fall off the edge. Not to mention, any fused fighter he can take down pretty easy by just walking over, hitting them a couple times, and defusing them, meaning that any fusion techniques are rendered ineffective in this tournament, but I assure you we'll get back to that later. Piccolo would use instant transmission and go to Yardrat, finding Paibara and recruiting him for the Tournament of Power. And anybody that's told about the stakes is definitely gonna join. So Paibara signs up, and he is officially their 7th member. As for the 8th, I'm going to have to go with Trunks, but not future Trunks, present Trunks, as the Tournament of Power takes place around the time Gohan died in the future timeline. And with Trunks in this timeline being born a couple years earlier because Vegeta and Bulma had a couple months on Namek alone, then I believe that Trunks would be around the same age he was when he first came back to fight against King Cold and Frieza. So this version of Trunks would definitely be a candidate for entering the tournament. Being aged up and trained by Vegeta and Gohan alike, he would be incredibly powerful, and it's hard to say that he wouldn't have Super Saiyan 4 by this point. I know it sounds like a bargain sale here, but if Gohan has it and he's training with Trunks, I see no reason the younger hybrid wouldn't be able to achieve it as well. Hell, future Trunks is able to do it in the last part, so I see no reason his present counterpart wouldn't be able to do the same here, landing him as the 8th member of the team and one of the strongest in Universe 7. Goten would be a little upset that he doesn't get to participate, but he gets it. Trunks has Super Saiyan 4 and he is a bit older, so it only makes sense to choose him over Goku's Mini-Me. The 9th member of the team would be Master Roshi, as although he isn't very physically powerful anymore, even weaker than Goten, he is still very skilled, and his knowledge as well as technique means he's a definite pick for the team. And as for the 10th member of the group, although it's a little risky, Goku chooses to go to Fortune Teller Baba, and then to Frieza, who, although an enemy for the longest time, might just be able to align with the group to save the entire universe and, by extension, the lizard's own backside. Sure, at first the Emperor is still a little salty, he was in his own personal hellscape for far too long, but eventually he complies, agreeing to join the group while unleashing a lot of his rage by showing off true Golden Frieza and then wiping out an entire army sent to assassinate him. Normally it wouldn't take long to get rid of all of these pests, but Frieza wants to stretch his legs. He needs to prepare for the tournament after all, so he savors each and every brutal kill. Although, because the selection of fighters was so easy, they wouldn't actually have taken that long out of the 48 hours, only about 24, meaning they still have one full day to do as they please, and Goku would choose to spend it training, specifically in the hyperbolic time chamber, but not by himself, no, with Roshi. A couple of weeks before the tournament, Goku and Vegeta were training, the Prince utilizing Super Saiyan 5, and although Super Saiyan Blue plus Kaioken was a deadly combination, it wasn't able to keep up with the white-furred penultimate transformation, so Goku was on a major back foot. Although in a last-ditch effort to gain an edge, he transformed into Ultra Instinct, only Omen and only for a couple of minutes. It took a lot out of him and he couldn't properly utilize the form. He dropped out of it quickly, although it was able to push Vegeta, so he wants to master that technique. And although Whis has offered to train him multiple times and they have done so, Goku sees a better route to mastering this form, training under Roshi, his first teacher and most likely his most effective. The Turtle Hermit and Saiyan Warrior were two sides of the same coin, whereas Master Roshi had all of the necessary technique and skill to access Ultra Instinct, he had none of the power, and thus was only able to utilize the technique in its most bare-bones form, whereas Goku had all of the power necessary, all of the energy he needed, and stamina reserves to maintain the form, he just didn't have the technique mastered yet. What one had, the other lacked, and Goku hoped to solve this problem by the two of them entering the Room of Spirit and Time. They had a whole day before the tournament occurred, so that means they have 1 year of training at their disposal. And after the training's complete and they exit the hyperbolic time chamber, Master Roshi has some pretty obvious gains, being much more powerful than when he went in. Granted, he's still probably the weakest of the group, save Paibara, but he is definitely stronger than before, and that's all that really matters. Goku, on the other hand, shows no real difference, only being much more calm. Whis believes he's made a breakthrough, but just judging by Goku's appearance, there's no way to really tell. However, there's no more delaying it. It's time for the Tournament of Power. The gods, the angels, and the fighters from each universe arrive on the arena, constructed by the Grand Priest from the imagination of the Omni King. The 80 strongest beings in the 8 weakest universes all arrive to defend their homes. Only one universe can survive, and only one man can get the wish on the Super Dragon Balls. So everyone is determined to make sure it's them. Although before the Tournament of Power even begins, Universe 7 would have already collectively decided on their wish. No matter who wins, they're going to revive all of the other universes. Frieza might not have agreed to this, but he probably will as well, since after all he wants to expand his empire everywhere, and there's a lot more room to cover if there are other universes involved. Although ultimately nothing that any of these universes do before the tournament will matter, as in only a couple of minutes, the tournament begins. Explosions like cannon fire begin to erupt all around the arena. Everybody is in grave danger and has to have their guard up at all times. Gohan tries to make his entire team stay in one collected area around the center of the arena, as they'd be much less susceptible to ringouts if they're farther away from the edge. And although most of the team does agree to stay in this group, 2 notable members do decide to leave the group, this being Frieza and Vegeta. Both of them want to go out and take out as many other fighters as possible. Everybody else, though, would decide to stick with the plan, staying in this large formation, that way nobody can touch them. And although Goku wants to go out and fight as many people as possible, he understands here the most strategic play would be to defend all of the other weaker fighters before the tournament really starts heating up. Most of the strong guys will probably still be here in a couple of minutes anyway. Although there are 2 fighters from another universe that decide to intervene with the formation, this being Kale and Caulifla. Although they don't want to fight the entire group at once, they understand that's pretty much a death wish, or a ring out wish, but they do want to fight somebody in the group, this being Goku, the guy that beat Hit, something they didn't even think was possible. Although shockingly, Gohan volunteers to take them on instead. He realizes that Goku is much stronger than him and would be a better use to the group if any more powerful opponents come and try and take them on. So Gohan springs into Super Saiyan 2 right away and starts battling Kale and Caulifla, who both on their own have regular Super Saiyan, although they haven't ascended to Super Saiyan 2. But with a little bit of teaching from Gohan, remember he is a professor after all, the 2 would actually achieve the 2nd stage. Although Gohan doesn't want to push them any further, he realizes they're pretty strong, and he doesn't want to risk getting ranked out too soon. And with a smirk and a boost in power, Gohan surges into Super Saiyan 4, the next stage in Saiyan power after Super Saiyan 2. Since remember, the group technically hasn't found out about Super Saiyan 3 yet. Both of the Universe 6 Saiyans would want to achieve this power, however Gohan isn't in the mood for teaching anymore. So he begins wailing on them, bringing them closer and closer to the outskirts of the arena. However, they realize what he's doing, and he's far too strong for them to take on their own. But as Caulifla is about to suggest they use the Potara fusion, Kale rages out and gains an entirely new realm of power, that of the Berserker Saiyan transformation that is exclusive to only her and another certain Saiyan. And although this power is extreme, Gohan is capable of fighting back, and as both of their powers continue to rise, Gohan is able to accelerate quicker, and nearly knock Kale out. However, Caulifla, in a last-ditch effort to keep her quote-unquote sister in, would put on the Batara, then fusing into Kefla. Gohan briefly questions if this is even allowed, but at the same time it could be a pretty fun fight, so he doesn't really care. His Saiyan instincts are getting the best of him, and especially while using Super Saiyan 4, he is ready for this challenge. And although it would be an extreme and hard-fought battle, Gohan would eventually still come out on top, bringing out Kefla in the nick of time before she actually surpassed him. But while he was off fighting against the fused warrior, Goku was actually preoccupied facing off against Hit. The rematch was incredible, although with Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken still at his disposal and quite at a more effective degree, Goku was still able to win. But he refused to knock Hit out, since he isn't too big of a threat and could be pretty useful later on. The father and son duo then are confronted by Toppo while being healed by Paibara, as the giant hulking warrior from Universe 11 believed it was cheating and unjustified to have a practical battery pack in their back pocket, since, after all, nobody else had that kind of healing ability, and Zeno didn't care because it was still technically a fighter. Toppo just believed it was unjust and wanted to fight against these quote-unquote cheaters. Not to mention that everybody blamed Goku for the tournament even happening, as well as the potential erasure of all of their universes. So Toppo saw him as sort of a supervillain, and he was going to be damned if he let a supervillain be the last one standing. And although Frieza would love to see Goku get pushed to his limits by this gopher-looking guy, Frieza does decide to step in, not wanting the formation that's probably going to end up winning this tournament and keeping him alive to be faced with such troubles. So, entering his golden form, he fights off against the Defender of Justice. Although only after a couple of minutes, Frieza makes Toppo so enraged, he sacrifices his beliefs in justice and utilizes the powers of the God of Destruction. And the Hakaishin powers prove to be just too much, as when Frieza is about to be thrown out of the ring with effortless ease, Vegeta steps in, saving the lizard even though it goes against everything he stands for, entering Super Saiyan 5 and overpowering the God of Destruction candidate. It takes no time at all before Toppo is easily overwhelmed and tossed out of the arena himself. Vegeta, although disgusted, tells Frieza to go head over to the Magic Man to get him healed. Although he also tells the lizard not to think the prince will ever do anything like that again. Next time, Frieza's on his own. The Emperor has the biggest grin on his face, knowing just how much he still gets under Vegeta's skin. Although defeating Toppo, especially after awakening to God of Destruction, does get the prince on somebody else's radar. This being Jiren. He realizes that whatever this power is, it's incredible and needs to be taken out before it rises any further. But with the power of Super Saiyan 5, not even Jiren was enough to outright defeat Vegeta. Although that is until the Pride Trooper begins to use his full power. He hates that he has to show it off this early in the tournament, however it does kind of make sense. Vegeta is most likely the strongest person in this tournament, so the two have an awesome battle, although it's definitely in Jiren's favor. That is until Goku steps in to defend Vegeta, immediately jumping to Super Saiyan Blue and stacking Kaioken on top. It's incredibly effective, although compared to Jiren, it's still just child's play. So Goku has to amp it even further if he wants to stand a chance. So he leaps back, lowering his power down to his base form before then calming his mind. Roshi realizes what Goku is attempting to do, so he rushes over, lending his student much of his power, as well as urging the rest of the group to do the same. He isn't using the Spirit Bomb or anything, but Goku is going to need all the strength he can get if he wants to pull off this technique. Vegeta obviously doesn't have to do this since he's holding off Jiren, however he would lend a tiny bit of his power. He is interested in what Kakarot can do after all. And with Paibara healing all of Goku's prior injuries from any of his prior fights, Goku stands up stronger than ever, although this time utilizing mastered Ultra Instinct. Everybody in the stands is entirely shocked by this. There's no way Goku, a mortal, is capable of using the technique of the angels. However, the person most surprised is Jiren. Universe 7 had 2 fighters capable of pushing him, and now 1 who has surpassed him. This makes absolutely no sense, although he doesn't have time to dawdle on this, as Goku joins the fight, and taking over for Vegeta, is able to easily defeat the Pride Trooper. None of Jiren's attacks would land, and every single hit Goku landed was devastating. And finishing it off with a Kamehameha, Jiren was finally defeated. However, the rest of the tournament does still need to be fought. But with the likes of Super Saiyan 5 Vegeta, Mastered Ultra Instinct Goku, who would be able to use the form for probably the rest of the tournament, as well as all of the other powerhouses from Universe 7, I think it's pretty clear to say who wins here. And with the discussion before the tournament began, as well as everyone's general good morality here, the person presented with the Super Dragon Balls would wish to have all the universes restored, this time being Goku, because he was undeniably the MVP, although if it wasn't him, it'd be Vegeta. Either way, they wish to have everybody else brought back, and finally, peace is assured throughout the multiverse. But this is Dragon Ball. No matter how much the gang fights for peace, another challenge will always rise up to test their determination. But I have no doubt in my mind that any evil that rises up will have good to face back against it. And that, my friends, is where we're going to be ending things for today. Whether you watch this in separate parts or are finishing the full story, either way I commend you for sticking around till the end. This has been one of the funnest stories to make, and even though it didn't do a huge impact early on, I believe it butterflied into an absolutely wonderful tale. I know it's cliche to say, but if you enjoyed the video, then please like, subscribe, and even hit the notification bell. That last part really doesn't do anything for me, but you gotta subscribe to get there. So scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Until next time, this is, always has been, and always will be the Irishman. Talk to you later. Bye.